Here we go.
Don't tell me you're not rocking out to this canned music.
That's right. Get the horns up. We got to feel happy about something. Oh, boy. Orange and blue today. We are presented by Sean Ponda. It is Cecil Lammey. It is Andrew Mason. You see on the beautiful thumbnail what went wrong against the Las Vegas Raiders. Mace, a ton to get to. I'm a little less emotional than I was last night when I was like, fire Will Lutz immediately. But we have a lot to get to. There are some positives. You wrote about that at denversports.com. We'll save those for the end. We'll finish on a good one. But for now, let's talk about what went wrong. Special teams, secondary, pass rush, no playmakers. Was losing Greg Dulcich really that big of a deal? Again, as we said off air, Mace, lots to get to.
Yeah, it's funny. Let's start with Greg Dulcich because still waiting word on how serious his injury is. But Sean Payton mentioned this last night at the press conference after the game, how things changed when Dulcich went out. And for those who've been paying attention for a long time, I have to admit there may have been a little bit of a Virgil Green flashback. You remember back in 2014, going to Seattle back when it was a rematch of Super Bowl 48. And Virgil Green, a reserve tight end, was considered sort of the hidden key to their game plan. And the poor guy suffered a concussion, I believe, on the first play he was out there, and the Broncos were left scrambling, unable to adapt, pardon me. And here it was, Greg Dulcich going down right before halftime. And you could see, like, for example, that play to Adam Troutman in the flat in the fourth quarter where Troutman got stopped short of the line to gain. The Broncos punted and never saw the ball again. That might have been different if Greg Dulcich had been the target, but he wasn't. And now it's on pins and needles waiting for the result of his MRI and what happens going forward, because after parting ways with Albert Okwuegbunam, the Broncos don't have a vertical speed threat at the tight end position.
Yeah, they don't have that. A lot of people brought up Alberto. We won't play coulda, shoulda, woulda, but like Dulcich was that big of the game plan? Like, you didn't have any other ideas? Didn't have any ideas how to mix it up against the Raiders? Overall, it was just disappointing because then you saw on the Troutman plays, like trying to make people miss. You can't do that, Adam. And I'll bring up the Samaje Perine play where he should have just planted a foot, went straight forward, broke a tackle, or at least got arm tackled, but fallen for the first down. Instead, he dances. It's not his game. Mm-hmm. It's like the lack of playmakers kind of infiltrated everybody who was trying to do stuff outside of their own skill set.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not that they can't develop playmakers, but right now, when you look out there, you see Jerry Jeudy not playing. Hopefully the Broncos get him back on Sunday. But then you see a couple of young guys who have plenty of promise, Marvin Mims Jr. and Jaleel McLaughlin, who can be playmakers, I think, in time. But with Mims, he's got to get some more branches on the route tree, so to speak. And McLaughlin, I mean, I don't mean to kind of excise him from blame here, but that poor dude had absolutely no shot on the plays where he was involved because, in particular, the blocking just completely broke down for him. It's kind of what you're waiting on right now because, with all respect to the players who were out there on Sunday, there wasn't a lot of game-breaking potential there. Probably the closest would have been Javonte Williams, and he was effective, but you can kind of see he's not quite back at that big-time, explosive, angry run level that he was at before the injury. I think he can get there as he continues to get more snaps under him, and in particular, he played Sunday without a brace. He says he's been playing without a brace since the Rams joint practices a few weeks back. So he can kind of build his strength, build his confidence. But right now, Javonte Williams isn't 100% just yet, and so that limits what you've got in terms of the ability to generate explosive plays.
On that Pirine play, if that's McLaughlin, he makes that guy miss because McLaughlin has no problem going inside. So Mace, is it merely just a trust thing? Is it Sean Payton's lack of trust? Because the guys he does trust, like Will Lutz, well, that didn't work.
Well, Will Lutz, I'll say this, Will Lutz earned the trust with 5 years of exemplary work from 2016 to 2020 in New Orleans. But here we are now. Since then, 1 year in which he was injured and 1 year in which he came back from the injury and he wasn't the same. And, there's an old saying, Cecil, that Broadway shows are reviewed on opening night. They don't wait for a week or two to get comfortable. The reviews come in after that first performance. And for Will Lutz, unfortunately, the reviews have to be harsh based on missing a PAT and the 55-yard field goal. That can kind of go either way. But, man, I mean, you lose a 1-point game and the PAT goes wide. Yeah, that's concerning, no doubt.
And after a nice drive too, like, and Nate says here in the chat room, he doesn't want to fish and he wants explosiveness. It's Joe Lombardi. Like, you're going to dink and dunk your way down the field. That's this version of Sean Payton's offense. It could be different if they had different playmakers. They don't. So expect this. But that first drive, it felt so good. Like Russ, this isn't anything on Russ. Like Russ didn't do anything wrong, basically, in yesterday's game. But like, they move the ball, and then you get down there and you miss the extra point. It's like, damn it. These games are going to be too tight. You and I've said it on this show. This team isn't good enough to win in blowout fashion. They're going to win close games, or they're going to lose close games because of mistakes like that. And we didn't even mention the onside kick, which I didn't mind the going for it.
I thought it was I thought it was a calculated gamble. And to their credit, they saw something in the Raiders' kick return unit. The guys up front, they said it was Josie Jewell mentioned it, that they thought one of the Raiders released and went back to block a little bit sooner. There was going to be the opportunity to do that. It was a great job by Ben Kotwika, Chris Banjo, and Mike Westhoff to study that and break it down. That is one that you'll say is an error of execution. And some of these are errors of execution. Traymon Smith touching the ball just a smidgen too soon, that's an error of execution. And that's frustrating. It's also part of the risk that you calculate with that because, back in the day, if you did that, you just re-kick it 5 yards back. Remember when that was the case? Right. So in theory, you could just keep getting try after try after try. Well, they changed that rule a little while back, and now you pay for it with the opponent getting the ball right there at the spot of the touch. Yeah. So that's part of the risk. But I don't want to see the Broncos not take those risks going forward. Again, error of execution rather than an error of decision-making or an error of effort. Errors of execution you can live with, and they can be fixed. The other things, it's a little bit trickier to get past. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett couldn't get past the errors of decision-making and process because that was just the MO of how he ran things. So yeah, it was frustrating for the Broncos. I'm taking some optimism here in the fact that the things they did well were clearly areas that they've been working on. And so if I'm on the offense, for example, I'm looking at that efficient 2-minute drill drive at the end of the first half and saying, hey, we put a lot of work into this, and it went exactly as it did because of all the extra work put into the 2-minute period. I actually asked a few players this, and I know Javonte Williams kind of agreed with me. I'd like to see 2-minute more often in the game, right, to change the tempo up a little bit. And also because they're really effective and they caught the Raiders off guard. They were simply more prepared, faster pre-snap. And that's another thing. You can see the process is starting to have results when you see how, for example, my favorite moment of the game, Cecil, and I'm blabbing here, but I can't help it. You and I are
blabbing, Mace.
Yeah, you and I are chatty MFs, as
Blankety Blankers, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so The sequence at the 20-yard line of the Raiders with 33 seconds to go in the first half. You have that slant route to Sutton across the middle, right? The clock is ticking. The Broncos are out of timeouts. And Cortland, after he's tackled, he has the ball. He stands up, holds it out for the official to come, take, quickly spot. Everybody hustles up. They snap it, spike it. And so you had a play, everyone running up after 15 yards gained, and a spike, and that took 14 seconds. I cannot overstate how remarkable that is and how efficient that is. And to me, something like that, that's reason why I'm actually feeling optimistic about what I saw, because you can see the process is already generating some positive results.
Well, and that's why when people say it feels like Groundhog's Day, and Nate in the chat room's like, same old Broncos, please, Mace, convince me otherwise. I think your last statement should have convinced him otherwise. They wouldn't have done that last year.
Yeah.
With Nathaniel Hackett. And we will break down into more positives, but like Damarri Mathis better get ready. And you and I had talked about Hunter Renfrow. We should have brought up Jacoby Myers, because Myers until Kareem blasted him. Like, we got to stop with the helmet-to-helmet stuff. Like even the Justin Simmons thing, which I think was a BS call. Like, you still don't lead with your helmet. You're going to get that call. We knew from the officiating crew, like, it's Vinovich, man. They're going to call those things. So, but it was Damarri Mathis getting picked on. And if you would have told me going into this game, Devontae Adams is going to be contained, Josh Jacobs is going to be contained, I would say, yeah, you've got a really good chance to win. Then you tell me Damarri Mathis gets burned regularly and Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't get sacked. Oh, okay, that could be problematic.
Yeah, the pass rush was non-existent. Now, that being said, some of it is because he's getting the ball out quickly, but that's where it becomes incumbent upon your interior rushers to make an impact. And as well as the Broncos did up front from the interior defensive line in stuffing the run and closing those lanes for Josh Jacobs, they were ineffective in the pass rush. Against quick rhythm-based passing games, it's got to be your interior players who, simply because of the geometry of things, they're going to get there faster. You needed Zach Allen to be impactful, and unfortunately, he wasn't in the game. Next week, as we get into it with Sam Howell in Washington, he's going to hold the ball a little bit longer. He's going to try to play hero ball and scramble around, and that's going to set things up for the edges to have more of an impact. But against somebody like Garoppolo, who's going to get the ball out quickly, especially in that Josh McDaniels offense, it's got to be the interior rushers getting home, and they didn't come close to getting home in this game. And then as for Damarri Mathis, look, tell me if I'm wrong. Did he look a little bit slow on his feet to you?
Yes. It looked like he was thinking a little bit too much, which is kind of rare for Damarri, because usually he's pretty instinctive. And he does have a short memory. That's a good thing about it.
He does have a short memory, but there's also the physical thing, because I asked him last week about the injury that he had against the Rams in the joint practice. And he said it was a high ankle sprain, which immediately, like, whoa, I mean, that's the spidey sense on that.
Technically, it's a broken leg. It's a small fracture in your shin.
He said it was low grade, and that's why he was able to be back out there for practice on Monday. But knowing this, I do, and watching him and just seeing that his feet, his twitch was a little bit slower than I've come to expect from Damarri Mathis, I wonder if it wasn't affecting him physically. Now, that being said, Sean Payton is not going to sit around and wait. And if Mathis continues to struggle, you will see Fabian Moreau out there. Maybe you see Isang Bassi take on that boundary corner role and then bounce inside of the slot in sub package, just sort of like Chris Harris Jr. Jaquan McMillan may be activated at some point. So I don't think they're going to sit around and wait for Damarri Mathis to get right. And also, Riley Moss could be in the mix at some point, although he too isn't all the way back from that core muscle injury. He was only limited last week, so that may be farther over the horizon.
Honestly, something we're pointing out, Mace, and we just did this unintentionally because we didn't have like show notes to do this, but what kind of we're exposing about what went wrong is the young guys didn't play enough. Like there comes a certain point where it's like we got to see more Jaleel McLaughlin. We have to, especially in this type of game. You need that explosion. It's not working with Samaje. It's not working as well as you want it to with Javonte, just because you lose Dulcich and everything falls apart. Defensively, you're not getting home. Surtan's taking away Adams, but Mathis is getting burned. And obviously Moss couldn't play this time, but you need to start featuring some of your younger, healthier guys. And it's a risk, Carnal, but I mean, things are too tight for you not to be a little risky if you're Sean Payton.
I mean, Drew Sanders didn't play yesterday. Is it possible that you get some packages for him?
Look at what Jose says here in the chat room on that last scramble for Jimmy G. Drew Sanders catches Jimmy G. I would agree with Jose on that. Not that he's going to bench Josie Jewell, but that's a moment you want Drew Sanders on the field.
Of course, the flip side of that is Drew Sanders. He's going to generate pressure, and maybe he'll be a little bit out of position at times. But I think formationally there may be some different things the Broncos can do to get Drew Sanders out there. Like, for example, do you think about in some matchups going in, we effectively saw some 5-2 packages on Sunday because they were trying to stop Josh Jacobs. Do you think about maybe some 2-5 with Singleton, Jewell, and Drew Sanders?
Oh, for sure.
Maybe you go a little bit small there, but you've got then 3 really active players who can cover a lot of ground. And in the cases of Jewell and Singleton, these are players who maybe they don't have the time speed, but they make up for that with their intelligence, and they're usually in the right spot at the right time. So that's something I think maybe they have to think about, because if they're going to find a way out of this thing long term, it's going to be the young guys who help them get there, and they're going to need to start finding out about them. Especially if they lose, if they're sitting at the in a few weeks 2-3, 2-4, which isn't impossible based on who they've got on the schedule, they may need to make some hard choices here in terms of who they're using.
And that's where the young guys come on. Jose, again, one of our favorites in the chat room. You're all our favorites, but he says Henningsen 9 snaps, Benito 14 snaps, Sanders 0. That's a mistake. I don't care if it's week 1. I don't care if you're 0-0, 1-0, 2-6. You've got some young guys that can make plays. I want to see Henningsen on the field. I want to see that effort when it's not going well. Mix it up, change it up. And what's weird about the pass rush thing, Mace, is entering training camp, I was concerned. Then we saw Nick Benito kind of grow, and we saw Jonathan Cooper kind of take over. And Frank Clark, whatever. I don't even care about Frank Clark, but
you make the playoffs, you're going to care. You make the playoffs, you're going to care about Frank Clark. I'll say that.
Well, there's a lot of stuff I could say about Frank Clark. I'll save it for another show, but then I wasn't concerned about the pass rush. And then I'm well, what is it? Just the offensive line sucks, and that's why they look good in practice. I was particularly disappointed, and I want to see some of these young cats play. And when Caden Stearns goes down in the secondary now, done. We need to see more JL Skinner. He'll be active next week to be sure.
Yeah, and I'd say probably ahead of him in line is De'Laren Turner-Yell, who was active very much on special teams. But, work him in. We only saw Stearns on 2 snaps yesterday before he got injured because they were using him when they went dime. So they had 2 dime snaps, and they had him out there. That will probably be Turner-Yell going forward, at least for the next few weeks until P.J. Locke comes back. But, look, these are all guys that I think you want to find out about. And at some point, you may have to start finding out about them. Right now, you are 1 play away at safety from De'Laren Turner-Yell playing every down, or JL Skinner, or PJ Locke. Locke is likely to come back after that 4th game. He's already working out on the side field. We see him at practice. I think his recovery is going to be on the shorter end, so you can expect to see him back by the Jets game if things go kind of as you expect they're going to go.
Right.
So that may well be part and parcel of this. It sucks for Caden Stearns, man, though. I mean, and you could see how saddened his teammates were for him in the locker room after the game. But the bottom line is when this season ends, he will have missed more games than he will have played over the course of his 3 NFL seasons. If he doesn't come back this year, he'll have 21 games played and 30 games missed. And unfortunately, as you go into the final year of his rookie deal in 2024, I imagine the Broncos aren't going to be saying, well, Caden Stearns is a huge part of our plans. It'll be, if Stearns can stay healthy, he'll help us out, but not going to be a foundational piece because, unfortunately, the injuries happening on an annual basis, you can't rely on him, sadly.
I hate to say it, but he hasn't been healthy since he was 18. His freshman year at Texas.
He's missed multiple games every year that he's missed since then.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the reason why he fell all the way to the 5th round 2 years ago, Cecil.
Right. And he stayed healthy. I mean, he looked like a stud when he was a freshman for the Longhorns, but that was many moons ago. So
that was 30 years ago when they used to have a show. Now it's a disco.
I'm glad you're here, Mace, to lighten the mood and to talk some football with me. Orange and Blue today, presented by Shop Honda. And it's not Lauren Landau, everybody. It's football.
We tried to tell you.
Yeah.
If you're watching,
wanted to listen. They just wanted to blame Lauren. And like Lauren's one of the best. He trains tons of big names in the league, including Christian McCaffrey. And it's like, it's not him, man. It's the nature of this game. But injury-prone players like Stearns falls because injury-prone. Dulcich had injury concerns. Now he's banged up. It's like, man, you got to stay healthy. The line's too thin, Mace, for this team. And immediately in week 1, you're not healthy. And it shows.
Yeah. And this team, roster-wise, it's still not where it needs to be in terms of depth. I mean, just look at the fact that we're sitting here talking about an offense that really doesn't have any explosiveness on the flanks. Now, again, I think Mims and McLaughlin can get there long-term, but they're learning how to be pros, right?
Right.
It doesn't happen in the snap of a finger. It can take more time. Jody says, do you expect more deep shots downfield? Not if we're going to keep seeing shell coverage like that every week. And look, this isn't just the Broncos-Raiders game, okay? Take a look at other games around the NFL on Sunday. And, it's Vic Fangio's gift to the NFL is shell coverage and keeping things underneath. And so if you're going to get those explosives, it has to happen on yards after contact and yards after the catch. It's got to involve making people miss. And unfortunately right now, the Broncos don't have enough players who can make people miss. Again, Mims and McLaughlin have the skill set. Judy has that skill set. But with Judy, he's got to stay healthy and be more consistent. With Mims and McLaughlin, they need to keep adjusting to the speed that they're going to see. Look, for Jaleel McLaughlin, as well as he did in the preseason, that was mostly against backups. Well, now you're jumping a level. It's like going from AAA to the major leagues. Some guys handle it great. Some struggle. You knew I was going to get a baseball reference in at some point.
Of course.
But the other baseball thing that I think everyone needs to bear in mind, as somebody who is deeply loves baseball and covers it from time to time as well, baseball makes you be very process oriented, and I think that's sort of why I'm feeling about the Broncos and what I saw on Sunday as I do, is because there's a lot of long-term process involved with this. Unfortunately, football, as Jerry Glanville said, the NFL stands for not for long, right? It's a world of impatience. And unfortunately, it's people around here are understandably impatient after 6 consecutive losing seasons. But patience is probably what you're going to need this year based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that. Also, for Jody's point, it's Joe Lombardi, everybody. Look at what happened with Justin Herbert last year. This is dink and dunk. Deep shots if a play breaks down, big plays if someone breaks a tackle, but no, it's dink and dunk and it's shell and it's rally to the ball. And also the preseason extends about a month into the regular season now, because a lot of teams don't do much or don't play their starters in the preseason. But although the Rams, holy cow, Rams. All right, Puka Nacua. Well, there's some young players forced into action because of the Cooper Cup injury. Puka Nacua making big plays. Tutu Atwell making big plays.
Well, don't forget the key to that. And with all respect to Cooper Kupp, the straw that stirs the drink, like Reggie Jackson back in the day. Another baseball reference. There you go. The straw that stirs the drink for the Rams is Matthew Stafford. And if Stafford is healthy, they've got a chance because he can be flawless in terms of how he runs that Sean McVay offense. And, and some of those receivers beyond Cooper Kupp, it's like running backs in the old Mike Shanahan offense we saw around here and the Kyle Shanahan offense now. They can be interchangeable parts in that scheme and it can work. So,
yeah. Need more explosive playmakers, need more explosive plays. We'll see. D-Mac was swearing that Jerry Jeudy would be the answer. I was like, let's not put our eggs in the Jerry Jeudy basket because he will drop it. So,
okay. In fairness, the drop rate has been much better than it was as a rookie. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to. I gotta throw a flag.
But are you gonna put your confidence in Jerry Jeudy? Because I sure as hell am not. Like, not at all. And not because of the drop rate. His drop rate was the same as Devontae Adams.
If I can set him up the way he was set up last year when he appeared to turn a corner, I'll put some eggs in his basket. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's put a pin on that. We'll have a little gentleman's bet on that going forward. Like, need to create more pressure. Need to figure out the secondary. Offensive line struggles. And I think they should run the ball more when they get closer to pay dirt. This is where I thought Samaje would do a little bit more work.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like they had this emphasis on let's try this out with the pass. And then Dulcich goes down. Like, Greg Dulcich can't be the reason why your offense falls apart. That's just a flimsy excuse. Although Sean Payton brought it up, Russell Wilson talked about it last night. Like, Dulcich was a big part of what they wanted to do. And I'm like, well, that's a mistake to have like one, funnel point. And then that goes away and you're like running around. Like, you're running the ball somewhat effectively. Maybe could have done that closer to pay dirt. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and sort of a little difference in this game was Greg Dulcich's not out there. Michael Mayer, the rookie out of Notre Dame, making a really big catch there in the fourth quarter as well for the Raiders.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. You got two young tight ends, day two tight ends from the draft. And sadly, one was injured and out for a half, and then the other was out there making a really big play for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Things like that. Look, these are things at the margins that end up costing you a game. Look, you could say that Philip Dorsett having, part of his foot out of bounds, that was a play that, if it had gone the other way, could have allowed the Broncos to win too. All these little things, man. All these little things.
All the little things.
Up.
Yes. We can play that song.
Small things.
Yeah, the small things. There you go. All the small things. I'm not a Blink 182 fan. Sorry.
Yeah, it's what? It's a song that I'm like, this really isn't a good song, but it gets people going at the Avs game. So okay.
Song, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyway, but I guess if I were an Avs fan, I'd love it more, but I'm a Lightning fan, so.
There you go. Get fans fired up at you again. Mace, we got a busy week ahead of us. We'll figure it out. Don't be as down. And here's my final point. And if you have more stuff to say, of course, we'll take all the time we need, baby. But like for me, it's just so disappointing. And I know it's not the same. But Colorado fans and Denver fans have been so excited about what Dion is doing at CU. And it's not fair and it's not the same. I get that. But you see the talk, and even people on the broadcast team, I won't call out any names, but even people on the broadcast team for CU were like, it's time for the hyperbole to end. Like, hyperbole means exaggeration. Dion was not exaggerating.
Yeah, as it turns out.
People were not saying that about Sean Payton. It's interesting how that would be different. It's interesting how, okay, it's time to put up. Like, we believe in Sean Payton. You and I personally believe in Sean Payton. You and I believe that Russell Wilson can run what he's going to do. And yes, it's going to be boring. And yes, he's going to be a game manager. Every quarterback's a game manager. Like, there's certain things like we have to accept. But damn it, at the end of the day, these small things add up to a loss if they're not done correctly. And this team isn't good enough to have all the penalties, no sacks, Jacoby Myers running free. Like, it's disappointing, Mace. I'm disappointed. I'm not as down as last night. I'm not as emotional as last night, but I'm still disappointed.
Yeah, and you know what? There are going to be some teams that you can make those kind of mistakes against and overcome them. I mean, look at Washington yesterday. They faced Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
If
it didn't blow them out of the water.
Well, the one thing that kept it close was Sam Howell trying to play hero ball instead of just taking the sack, right?
Right.
Sam Howell will do two things every game that could win you the game, and two things every game that could lose you the game. And it depends, and whether it wins or loses them for Washington depends on numerous other factors, right? But the point being, you weren't playing Arizona. You were not playing a great team, but you're playing a team a level above Arizona. And on Sunday against Washington, you're going to play a team that's probably on the same level as the Raiders. I would say probably a notch above the Raiders. It's a more complete roster that Washington has. And we'll get into this as the week goes on. It's stronger and much stronger in the front seven defensively than the Raiders.
Even without Chase Young.
I'm not sure that more than 3 defensive starters on the Raiders would start for Washington. So in terms of the defense you're going to be going up against, you're going up in class here on Sunday. And if you can't get those small things right, you're going to keep losing them. The final point I'm going to have is this. You can read more about it at denversports.com. Do you know what the Broncos lead the NFL in over the last 6 years of losing seasons? 1-score losses. They have more 1-score losses than anybody else.
I hate to bring up Dion all the time, but there is such a thing, and it's my belief. Not everyone has to believe it, which is fine, Mace. But I believe in magical thinking. I certainly believe in the power of positive thinking. Where's the mile high magic? If you're talking about 1-score losses, you know who had that down was these teams who had the mile high magic. They just figure out a way, right? 1-score games, whatever. John Elway, whatever. Jake Plummer, whatever. Peyton Manning, whatever. Like they'd figure it out. There was magic in the air, and I think that magic is gone.
And you're going to have to work to get it back. I mean, the players are saying the right things in the locker room, and I think they themselves believe. But I'll tell you, when it was 17-16, you could almost feel 70,000 tight sphincters in those stands on Sunday. Look, and you sense that if you've got any concept of taking in what's around you and your surroundings, you can't help but feel that. I've seen it in every sport. I remember, again, we're going to make another baseball reference here. 2 years ago, Atlanta playing the Dodgers in the NLCS, and it's the 7th inning, and it's 2 on, nobody out. Dodgers look like they've got momentum. It looks like it's about to cave in on the Braves, and all their fans. You could feel the nervousness, right? Because October and the Atlanta Braves, they're not friends. Braves are that team that gets the playoffs most years and then finds a way to bleep down their leg somehow, some way. And yet you had one player, former Rockies pitcher Tyler Matzik, who came in out of the bullpen and struck out the side, and everything changed. Everyone's mentality changed. And that's how quickly it can happen, right? And so who's to say that, maybe next week we're not talking about this team winning a tough game at the end instead of losing. Instead of finding a way to lose, they find a way to win. Or maybe it happens against the Jets in October when Aaron Rodgers comes in, right? But it's going to happen. The worm will turn. Everyone's going to feel it. And then all of a sudden, the mentality is going to change in Broncos country. I've seen it happen other places. I know it can happen again here. But right now, you're going through the dark forest right now, as Ted Lasso would say.
Well, there needs to be a light at the end of the tunnel, because you will remember, and how many dozens of times we could remember this. Where it's like, we're down, whatever, fourth quarter, what's Peyton got? Like a couple minutes? Yeah, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I hate to steal another Dion line, and I might be obsessed with Prime, but believe, everybody, believe.
I think that
Patience
was Ted Lasso first with the believe, but now Dion's kind of getting in on it.
It ain't all about Ted Lasso, baby. It's about Dion. Everything's Dion.
Gosh.
It's all started with Dion. You didn't make me, so you can't break me. Like, come on, Broncos country. It's down. It sucks right now, but believe and loosen up those sphincters, baby.
Real quick before we go, do you think that the contrast around here between CU and the Broncos is kind of part of what people are feeling right now? Because on Saturdays, everyone's starting to believe that wonderful things are going to happen in Boulder, and on Sundays, people are believing that bad things are going to happen there. There on the west side of 25.
And what you think about, you bring about, and energy flows where attention goes. So if you think your life sucks, your life is going to suck. If you think you can do it, even through struggles, you can do it. Like, what are you focusing on? It's an old motorcycle rule, Mace. Like, when you get in towards an accident or someone pulls out in front of you, don't stare at them. Know how to get around it. And in life, don't stare at your obstacles. Oh, it's my boss's fault. Oh, it's my dad's fault. Oh, it's my wife's fault. Whatever. It's you. It's you.
Yeah.
You're in control. So Broncos, Sean Payton, don't focus on what you didn't do and what you can't do and Will Lutz, blah, blah, blah. Focus on what you can do and do it to the best of your ability.
Speaking of you being in control, before we go, you're in control of what you wear. What is with that hat, man?
Right near the beach. I always wanted a Rasta hat. Didn't you want a Rasta hat ever? You don't want one? Well, since I'm growing out my hair, see, it's a slouchy one, so I got a bunch of room in the back. It's for dreads.
Okay.
Put the dreads in the back. I'm not going to get dreads, but because my hair is long, I can just put it in the back and slouchy. If you knew how much I was obsessed with slouchy beanies, you probably wouldn't talk to me.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I'm just. It's an unusual choice, but hey, it's a bold choice. It's not a choice I would have made. I'm keeping it kind of plain today. All I can say is my life is pretty plain. I like watching the puddles gather rain.
All I can say is that's a wrap, everybody. Keep your heads up somehow. I hate to sound like Tony Robbins on this show or Gary Vee, but like, come on. It'll be there. Just believe. Mason, I'll be out there. Be back in action tomorrow. Stay tuned. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. OBT is a BFD, and we certainly do appreciate all of you. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thanks. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.